Story 1. Am I the a-hole for throwing them out of a house that we own? They thought their son owned the house, not us. My wife and I bought a 4-bedroom house in Pennsylvania that my son lives in. Our son went to college in Pennsylvania and wanted to stay in the area, so we bought the house as a second home. We live in New Jersey and commute into Manhattan for work. We figured that he would have a place to live and we could visit every so often and spend some quality time together. We pay the taxes and services/maintenance on the house. Our son pays for his groceries and the house utilities. All was going well for a few years. Our son meets a girl and they get serious. We met her and she seems nice enough. They announce their engagement and she moves into the house with our son. Now for the problem, the wedding. We held a little get-to-know-you barbecue at the Pennsylvania house. My son and daughter are there, as are our son's fiancée and her parents and sisters. We all seem to be getting along well. My wife, daughter, and the fiancé go into the house along with her mother and sisters and my son. A few minutes later, my wife and daughter come out and are really upset. They come over and tell me we're leaving and driving back to New Jersey. I tried to find out what happened. Once we got back to New Jersey and they calmed down, they told me that our son and his fiancée, along with her family, don't want us at the wedding. According to what I was told, we're not their kind of people. I was livid. I called my son and asked him what the hell this was about. He tells me that her family feels that we are not good enough and will embarrass them at a family wedding and that we are all uninvited from the wedding. I let a week go by to calm myself down and drive back to the Pennsylvania house. The new future in-laws are in the house along with the fiancé. It appears that they all moved into the house. They ask me why I'm there. I tell them that since we aren't invited to the wedding, I was coming over to talk to my son. They tell me to leave their house. I lost it and told them that they had 30 days to get out. Tell my son I'm selling the house and he could find somewhere else to live with all of you. I go to a realtor in town and list the house for sale. They call my son at work and tell him what I said. Apparently, they thought that he owned the house. He calls me and asks why I'm selling his house. I tell him I paid for it along with the taxes on it, and it is mine. He was living there rent-free, but since he doesn't want us in his new life, he has to get out. I tell him the same as I told his future in-laws. They have 30 days to get out, then I'll get a lawyer and get them evicted. Am I the a-hole for taking a hard stance on this? He is my son, but the in-laws seem to take over and we no longer count. The extent that you have to go to make me side with someone who can just afford to buy a second house, aside from their Manhattan job and this and that, like, I'm not inclined to side with people who are like, we wanted to be a little closer to our son while he was going to college, so we just bought a second house. Like, I am not inclined to side with people like that. I have prejudices. I shouldn't. We all kind of do, though. I hear about people that with that kind of money, and I'm like, no. But immediately, I'm kind of on their side. Like, you got this fiancé, you bring their family in, and then you're like, oh, by the way, you don't get to come to our wedding. You're not our kind of people. Like, what a gross thing. And while you're staying in that house, and don't get me wrong, maybe this family sucks. Maybe they suck hard. I don't know. But if they do, then you still shouldn't be like, oh, my family sucks, but I am just going to try and keep the second house that they bought and assume it's mine. Like, no. If you want to distance yourself from that family because they suck so bad, then you're not also going to, accept something from a free house from them. Like, you don't get to play, both sides of that. No, absolutely not. So, yeah, maybe this family's awful. I can't possibly know that, but from what the information I'm giving here, no, these people probably aren't the a-holes. Hey folks, huge content warning for some pretty extreme mental abuse of a child and threats of self-termination. It's a pretty uncomfortable story to hear, so if you don't want to hear that kind of stuff, skip to the times code that my editor has on screen now to get over to the next story. Story 2. Mom threatens and fakes self-termination to make a 10-year-old take her side in fights. When I was 7 years old, I went to the bathroom to pee just to find a bathing mug 20% filled with blood. I ran outside crying in panic to Mom. She said it's her blood she removed with injection because Dad didn't want to take her to an orchestra. Similarly, she would accuse Dad a lot of having an affair. When they would be fighting, she would tell me not to talk to Dad or she would jump off our house. Young me would be very scared. I didn't want to lose my mom. She would say, "Your dad would marry another woman and you will have a stepmom." She used to say stepmoms abuse their stepkids, the irony. They beat them and deny them food and basic needs. One evening when I was 10, Mom was on the roof till 11:30 p.m. I found her roaming around, not sad or anything. She said she was just bored. We only had a one-bedroom me and my parents shared. I went to sleep and Dad was already asleep. Mom finally came down at 11:45 p.m., took out something from the cupboard, ate it, and she came to sleep next to me. She told me she had swallowed 4 Valium pills, high-power sleeping tablets, and said, "Your dad can marry whoever he wants, I am out." She casually went to sleep. I was very scared, crying. I didn't know what to do. I hugged her and couldn't stop crying for an hour or so. She finally woke up, went to the bathroom, and I could hear the puking sound for 10 to 15 seconds, and she came back to sleep. She didn't say anything. I was still not sure whether I would have a mom after waking up the next day. But she was completely fine and acted like nothing happened last night. I used to have nightmares for months after that in which either my mom has died or she has left the home forever. When I was in severe depression and had to drop out for a year from school, Mom used to say, "You and I should both drink poison because you are useless anyway." She would make jokes like, "Watch out, I might have mixed something in your food. Why do you keep living? You're not doing anything for your family." I am no therapist, but it seems pretty apparent to me that this mom is dealing with some pretty severe mental issues of her own, be it, depression or, something else. I can't say for sure, but as much as that is certainly an explanation of her actions, the fact that this is affecting a child and, I am sure part of what probably, has contributed to this poster's own depression and issues that they've had and stuff, like, this is untenable. I can't imagine what it would be like to grow up around someone doing this to you. This is extremely abusive behavior. And this mom clearly does need some help, but she also needs to have this child should have been taken away from her. And I'm not saying that I don't want to call her a bad mom because she is clearly struggling with a severe mental illness of some sort. But when it's affecting a child, it's bad parenting. This is so bad for this kid, and it would be better for everyone if, they could have gotten some help. I don't know, folks. If you're in a situation like this, please reach out to someone that you can trust. And hopefully something can be done. I hope it can, but take care of yourselves. Story 3. Drank a beer so I wouldn't be forced to babysit for my aunt. My aunt, now 40, has 3 kids under the age of 10. At every family gathering, I, 23 male, become the de facto babysitter despite me not wanting to be so. The adults can drink. It was her birthday dinner yesterday, and my mom promised me that I wouldn't have to babysit and that the kids would be at a friend's house. The first step I take into their home is greeted by 2 ear-splitting screams about how much the kids missed me and 1 toddler maudling. I immediately realized I might have been lied to. Normally, I don't drink, huge lightweight, but since this was a special occasion, I had made some plans. So my aunt enters the hall to greet my mom while I reach into my backpack and walk into the living room and crack out one of the 2 12% Viking beers I special ordered for me and my uncle. He likes weird beer. And we start drinking. About 3 minutes later, my aunt sees the can and starts screaming at me for drinking while watching the kids. I only hear distant screaming. I repeat my mom's promise, and she calls me the R word when they're clearly staying here. So I reach out my hand and say, $200 for emergency babysitting, and I won't finish this beer. She says, hell no, so I chug the half-liter can to the loudest cheers and laughs from my dad and uncle. When I'm done, I say, happy day, mom, sister, with a burp, with my mom just looking hugely embarrassed for my aunt. My designated driver dad ends up watching them the entire night instead. I think he might schedule a vasectomy soon. Yeah, I mean, I love my nephews and niece. Wonderful kids. Very, very draining. Like, they've got some energy that I just do not have anymore. But, you know, if I was going to some kind of little get-together and I was asked to watch the kids and everything, yeah, I would be happy to do so. However, to always get stuck with that job, especially in your 20s when you want to be having some fun, and to, like, have that just placed on you as like, no, you're the de facto babysitter. If you're here, you have to babysit them because I get to do adult stuff. That's crappy. And then to be going there and be told, no, you're not going to have to babysit, and then have that thrown at you. Yeah, no, good plan. I fully support this. I absolutely think that's a perfect decision. And yeah, you should not be forced into having to do that stuff, you know? She can ask politely beforehand, and you can either agree to it or say, I don't think I'd like to, and then she can make other plans. She could act like her age, an adult, 40 years old. I should know. Story 4, entitled Mother Thinks I Should Give My Diabetic Snacks to Her Daughter. So, I am a type 1 diabetic, and in the morning I went out for a bike ride. As I'm a diabetic, I always bring snacks with me in case I go low or get hungry. I bring a juice box, a few glucose tablets, 2 fruit chews bars, and 2 granola bars, just enough for me to be able to correct my blood sugar twice and have a small snack. As I was biking home, I passed someone sitting on the ground who looked like they were kind of distressed, so I pulled over to ask if they were okay. The guy was a little younger than me and told me he was a diabetic and showed me his medic alert necklace. He explained that he had gone low while biking but forgot to refill the snacks in his bag when he had left, so he was trying to figure out what to do. No one to bring him anything, but didn't want to call an ambulance over this. I offered him my snacks and to sit with him while we waited for it to go back up, explaining that I was a diabetic. After I'd sat down with him and gave him the tablets, a woman came over and asked for my juice box for her daughter. I explained that I was giving him what I had because he was a diabetic and had low blood sugar, and I needed the rest to ensure I could get home safe. She started to tell me that she and her daughter had been biking a few hours and she was hungry and just wanted my juice box and a granola bar. I asked if her daughter was diabetic, and she said no. So I apologized and again explained nicely that I need those for myself. The conversation that followed is as such. Entitled Mom, so why did you give him some? Because he's a diabetic and his blood sugar is very low. For reference, our blood sugar is supposed to be between 4 and 8, and his was 2.3. Oh, do you know him? No, but as a diabetic, I know how dangerous lows can be, and if I was in his position, I'd hope a fellow diabetic would try to help me. So you don't know him. The conversation continued like that. She asked why I cared if I didn't know him, and me giving the same explanation until the guy rechecked his blood sugar and it was back up to 3.5. As this was still a little too low for both of us to feel comfortable, I grabbed my juice to give to him, and this is when entitled Mom tried to grab it out of my hand, saying that if his blood sugar was still low, I should just call him an ambulance, and then I could give my snacks to her and her daughter. At this point, I was honestly kind of peed and told her to F off, and that as a mom, she should have thought to bring snacks for her daughter, and if I hadn't gone by, what would she have done? She went red in the face, called me a B, and stormed back to her daughter. The guy's levels went up, and we parted ways, and I started to bike away. I heard Mom shout after me, calling me a B again. What is wrong with people? Why are there these entitled people in the world? Like, yeah, you know what? If this person had just like extra snacks, and you went over and asked like, hey, if you have some extra snacks, I didn't think to bring stuff with my daughter. We're so tired and thirsty. Is there anything you could possibly spare? I'd be happy to give you some money for it. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But to go over and be like, I need that for my daughter. No, what? Like, and then to get the explanation that it's like you're sharing it with this person because it's a medical emergency and that you need the rest because it could also be a medical thing for you, and for her to just ignore that and be like, but I'm thirsty. My daughter needs granola. Like, and then she's like, oh, do you even know him? So why are you giving him stuff? Why does that matter? Like, what if this person just did this out of the kindness of their heart or whatever, like, and then, but I can't wrap my head around this person's line of thinking. It is breaking my brain because it's like, oh, you don't know this guy. Why would you help him? Well, I don't know you either, lady, or your daughter, so why would I help you by that logic? That's what I was trying to get out, but my brain couldn't do it because this lady's breaking me. And can't people just be a little more polite? Come on. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.